Hello, my name is David Craiglow, and today we'll be discussing poverty. In the slide behind me, you can see the different shades of gold to brown. The darker the shade, the worse the poverty in that particular region. When we think of poverty, we think a lot of inner city, but you'll notice on this map that most of the darker shaded areas are way out in the rural areas and far removed from the cities. These are percentages. The actual population of poverty is greater in the cities, but on a percentage head count, it's much, much worse in the rural areas, and it's often quite ignored. When we think of poverty, this is what we think about right here. Poverty is definitely divided up by race. According to this chart, the Native Americans suffer from it the most. It is debatable as to whether the African American population or the Native American population suffer from it most. Those figures are so close in percentage points that it's really hard to determine exactly which one. In a lot of the white rural areas, there's a lot more poverty than these charts can actually reflect. When we think of poverty, we also think of homeless people. We don't think of the people that are homeowners or that have apartments but are just barely getting by. Poverty isn't necessarily always dirty. There's many instances, you know, where the house looks perfectly clean, but the people living inside the house are suffering. We notice by this chart that metropolitan poverty is consistently lower than rural poverty, and we over the last 10 years have seen a divide between rural poverty and metropolitan poverty that has continued to get wider and wider and wider. When we see this guy in every town, we see him in every park. But if you drive down the interstate, you'll see them at a lot of different intersections, truck stops. They're everywhere. Poverty is everywhere. The one group of people that is hardest hit, as high as 37% in the rural areas, are single moms raising children. Obviously, single moms have to deal with daycare. Daycare costs money. They go to work. They can't pay for anything, so they stay home and they try and exist off of food stamps and basic services like WIC and what have you. However, I believe that down the road we're going to see less and less of that, and I would hope that we would see more and more community involvement, helping to take care of these people and get them out from under the gun. The inequality chart basically looks at the highest 10% of income earners to the lowest 10% of income earners. That gap, the wider it is, the greater a problem with poverty that you're going to have. And of course, the undiscovered truth of poverty is that the children are definitely the hardest hit nationwide. In my state of Texas, it can be as high as 27%, especially along the border where there is not a lot of population, but there is a lot of poverty. You can see here in this chart that 27% in the South, and that's just a ridiculously high number. We're not exactly sure why the South got hit so hard, but it has been a problem for years and years and continues to be. As this chart here indicates, most of the northern states hover somewhere in between 15 and 25%, while you look at the southern states and they're being creamed with as high as 27, 28%, well over 25%. And we also notice from that chart that it doesn't really matter where in the country. There is definitely a problem with poverty, but the southern states are the hardest hit. In the last 3.5 years, 15 million people have been accepted to the food stamp program. That's a deceptive figure because that 15 million of the people that got accepted, not the people that applied and were denied that. This is where the community comes in. food banks and churches, because that's where these people that do not have the ability to get to the food stamp program or some of these other social programs, that's where they can find some kind of solution to their problem. Habitat for Humanity, while it is a somewhat government granted program, really relies on volunteers from the community to get out there and build these houses at, for dirt cheap prices. These are incredibly important programs. In this slide here, we notice a group of folks. They're community designers. What they do is they basically go in and they look at the problem of poverty within certain communities. They find ways to solve that problem, solutions for that problem, and then they go in there and they implement those solutions voluntarily, with very little government money involved at all. It's all, volunteerism from the community. The true community are the churches, the local events that can be held for to raise money for charities, your 501(c)(3)s, nonprofit organizations, programs that we've known about for years like FFA and 4-H. We can go in, and through the community we can take these rundown houses that are in the middle of sometimes of very nice neighborhoods, and we can restore them. It's a hammer and nail issue. It is the power of the community to overcome poverty. And when we look at the solutions, they are the results of the solutions. They are indisputable. The only way to solve poverty is community. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.